As we look at the history of America's limited government, we look at President Richard Nixon. Many often think of him and think of Watergate, but he was much more. And as the 1958 midterm elections were ending, this man, who was given unprecedented responsibilities as vice president and was being anointed as a star, effectively entered the 1960 presidential race. Republicans suffered major losses in the 1958 midterms, so Nixon traveled extensively around the country, gave speeches, met with party leaders, and built support in what amounted to an active campaign. He won his party's nomination and came face-to-face with another rising star in the general election. Nixon was up against John F. Kennedy, the Democratic senator from Massachusetts. Their televised debates are one of the most famous moments in American political history. Historians generally think Kennedy won solely because he looked better on television. Kennedy also had a strong Democratic coalition built during the New Deal era.
If the present trend continues, if Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, will be the next president of the United States.
Kennedy won by a very narrow margin in a race where allegations of corruption abounded. Still, Nixon congratulated John F. Kennedy and accepted the outcome.
If this trend does continue and he does become our next president, that he will have my wholehearted support and yours too.
Many Republicans urged him to challenge the results in states like Illinois and Texas, but Nixon declined to pursue a broad legal fight, saying that a prolonged contest could weaken confidence in the presidency during the Cold War. Nixon returned to California and practiced law with the firm Nixon, Mudge, Rose, Guthrie, Alexander, and Mitchell. He remained a major figure in the Republican Party and was widely viewed as a possible future presidential candidate. In 1962, he ran for governor of California against Democratic incumbent Pat Brown. Nixon lost the race, and after his concession speech, he had this to say to reporters.
But as I leave you, I want you to know, just think how much you're going to be missing. You don't have Nixon to kick around anymore.
At the time, many political observers believed Nixon's career was finished. But he returned to national politics in 1968 when he saw America was in turmoil with the Vietnam War, large anti-war protests, riots in major cities following the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and a sense among many voters that the country was losing direction. The incumbent got out of the race with this surprise announcement hidden in a speech about the Vietnam War.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
Having lost a close one 8 years ago and having won a close one this year, I can say this: winning's a lot more fun.
Nixon won, defeating Democrat Hubert Humphrey by building a coalition of Republicans, suburban voters, and many working-class Americans. In 1969, Nixon delivered the Peace with Honor speech.
Tonight I want to talk to you on a subject of deep concern to all Americans and to many people in all parts of the world: the war in Vietnam.
The political significance was that Nixon used this speech to rally Americans who supported his gradual withdrawal strategy in Vietnam and opposed immediate withdrawal.
So tonight, to you, the great silent majority of my fellow Americans, I ask for your support. I pledged in my campaign for the presidency to end the war in a way that we could win the peace. I have initiated a plan of action which will enable me to keep that pledge.
Now, Nixon's approval rating had fallen into the mid to high 50s prior to that speech, but after the speech, his numbers jumped sharply. Gallup recorded Nixon's approval at about 67% in mid-November of 1969.
For 36 months, President Nixon has been working for the passage of his federal revenue sharing program through the Congress.
Nixon entered the 1972 presidential race as one of the most popular presidents of the modern era. He had foreign policy successes, including his policy of Vietnamization, which was bringing American troops home while avoiding a humiliating defeat. Unemployment was relatively low, and the economy was generally performing well. Also that year, he made historic trips to China and the Soviet Union, easing Cold War tensions through diplomacy and arms control agreements, opening up talks that many felt would never open up. The 1972 presidential election was one of the biggest landslides in American history. Richard Nixon defeated Democratic nominee George McGovern by an overwhelming margin. Democratic opponent George McGovern had only 37.5% of the popular vote, 17 electoral votes, and won only Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. Nixon had 60.7% of the popular vote, 520 electoral votes and won 49 states.